The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at wrestlingwithjohners.com. Hello and welcome to another live episode of Wrestling with Johners. I think we're up to episode 273 or thereabouts. So many episodes now, starting to lose count. But I got a fantastic guest for a Friday evening. We're live across Facebook, Twitch and YouTube. And today I've got with me renowned trainer, booker, professional wrestler, the wonderful Paul Ashe. Paul, how are you doing, my friend? Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, friend. I'm doing good. I'm busy, but busy's good. I'm good.
Absolutely. And we know that you've had a busy few days. We're going to touch on all of that very, very soon. But for anybody watching at home live and you want to get in touch, you can do. If you want to ping your questions or your comments through for Paul, please do so using your chosen device. They'll come through to us and we'll do our very best to bring them up live on air, of course, as long as they're all appropriate. Maybe some inappropriate ones as well. Who knows? But Paul, great to have you on this show. I think we were clarifying a few points before we went live, and I think you confirmed that you've been in the business for around 26 years now. So you must have been a boy when you started, my friend.
Yeah, I was 19 when I started training, 21 when I first started doing shows. So that's giving away my age. I'm 45 years old now. So it's been my entire adult life.
Yeah. You're catching up with me, but I think I'm 1 year older than you. But we will be talking about everything UBW, about your fantastic career in the ring as a trainer, as a booker. But first of all, I want to talk about this. This past Sunday, the 4th of December, UBW The Floor is Lava 5. Why am I bringing that up? Well, it's because you made your long-awaited return to the ring. I think you're probably away only maybe a couple of 3 years, my friend. You might be able to fill us in on that. But you did make your return to the ring in the Floor is Lava Rumble match. Tell us a bit about that. First of all, what prompted you to get back in the ring after a bit of an absence? And was it anything to do with Truman Roswell?
That certainly added to it. I mean, there's an ongoing midlife crisis in some ways or another. But no, I think, I've been training all of the up-and-coming Square One UBW students for so long. I really miss it. Every single week and every single show that I'm helping out, I miss being in there. And I kind of thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to get back in there. I haven't got the pressure of a full match, so I can get by with not having to be as cardio efficient as I would want to be. And there's an opportunity to have some fun because my lifelong friend, my tag partner, Phil Bedwell, was in there as well. There was an opportunity for us to get in there and have some fun. And it was an opportunity to throw around Adonis Payne, which I'm never going to say no to. And then I was running a bit of a thing with Truman Roswell as well. And that picked up some steam the week leading into it. We had some good fun doing some promos back and forth. And I thought, I could step back in there, no problem. 3 years off. Who's going to be rusty? Yeah, I found that out the hard way. The rust is there.
Well, I'm going to bring up the picture of the former champion now, the former UBW British heavyweight champion. And apologies, Truman, if you're watching this. We're getting you on the show in January, so you can have your say in just a few weeks' time. But you did enter the Rumble match, the Floor is Lava match. You mentioned one or two of the combatants there. And give us your take on how the match went for you.
To be honest, it went well. Far better than I expected. I honestly thought I was going to be in there about 2 minutes to start throwing up through cardio. You, even after 26 years, you get out of ring shape very easily. And I didn't do too bad with the cardio, but I forgot just how much it hurts to land on the ring. It's been a few years. And everything went quite well. And then I ended up taking Truman Roswell's spin side job, spinning cutter, and landed particularly heavy and ended up with this bad boy.
Yeah, look at that. That's
taking some of that out, but yeah, my elbow is wrecked.
That's a doozy, isn't it? That's a doozy. And speaking of a doozy, this was the picture you sent me, probably on the day that it happened. And yowza, what was the prognosis of that? What is the actual problem there?
Let's look at that. Luckily, I was down A&E on Monday just to get checked out. Did some X-rays, and they said there's no fractures, no breaks. Possibly, I've ruptured the bursa, which is the protective sac you have here. But like I said, even if it is that, nothing you can do. It will heal in its own time. Just rest. So that's basically it.
Yeah, exactly. And did it give you the bug again to have more matches? And like I say, there's still this beef between yourself and Truman, which I don't think is fully resolved. He was certainly, cutting some promos on you through socials, and you did 1 or 2 back. I know that for sure. But has the bug bitten you again, Paul? Do you want to get back in there and maybe take on the former champion, Truman Roswell?
If you haven't read it, I would really, really recommend Roddy Piper's autobiography, Into the Pit. He mentions in it about wrestling, and he calls it the sickness, in that no matter what you do, you can never get rid of that bug, never get rid of that desire. It's always there. It's like an illness. It's like a craving constantly. And I got back in there, and this happened, and I thought, maybe that's a sign that I should be done now. I shouldn't be getting back in there. That was on Sunday. By Monday, I was thinking, I want to get back in there. So I need to lose some weight. I need to get back into shape. But the prospect of a singles with Truman is quite palpable. And the option of getting back in there and doing a new breed one more time, I don't think I'm done just yet.
Yeah. Maybe with some elbow pads next time, though, Paul. That might...
I think most definitely yes.
Not that you need to take any advice from me at all, but maybe some elbow pads. I'm going to bring up a picture now, and not to embarrass you, but unless Kip Sabian made a special appearance in the Rumble on Sunday, what is going on here, my friends? Add a bit of context to that. I'm assuming that's you.
It is indeed. So one of the best wrestlers on the UBW roster, and I think he's one of the most unsung talents in the country right now, Ricky Calvey. He's been doing this for a couple of years now, and he got inspired by Cody Rhodes, started doing the ugly bag over the head thing. And he popped in shortly after me, and while I was laying there, kind of just almost relaxing and trying to get my breath, he took the opportunity to run over and go, there you go, and popped it on my head. And I then thought, well, you know what? Maybe kind of like the baby mentality. If they can't see me, if I can't see them, they can't see me. So I thought if I keep it on, then people will leave me alone. It didn't last.
Yeah. But I won't bring that picture up again. You've got my assurance on that for sure. One picture I do want to bring up, though, is UBW, of course, have a brand new British heavyweight champion, Levi Muir. What a specimen. What a guy. I've met Levi a few times up and down the country in 2022. Such an extraordinary talent, and he, of course, won the Floor is Lava match. So congratulations there. I'm sure Truman's not too happy. You'll have to find out when I interview him in January. But any thoughts on Levi? What a fantastic talent.
I think Levi, personally, if you just said, give me your prototype of what a wrestler champion should look like, what a wrestler should look like, someone that you could say, I'm going to put the marketing machine behind this person, they're going to be the figurehead of a company, you'd have Levi Muir. Obviously, he looks fantastic. He's got the credibility of the training behind him, training at WWE, training at Lance Storms. He's fantastic in ring. He's a great personality. He's got the right kind of mindset. He's literally the whole package. And you see him standing there with that belt, and you just look, and the first thing I thought was, that belt looks right on him. He's a star.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be interesting to see what the future holds for the new UBW British champion. But as I said to you off air, I've had so many guests over the last, certainly over the last year to 14 months, and probably going back further if I think about it, that have come on my podcast, and we've ended up talking about UBW until we're blue in the face, about what a fantastic company it is and what a gift it is to the British independent wrestling scene, and what fantastic talent it's produced over the last 9 or 10 years since its inception. I think it started around 2012, 2013. But in a nutshell, Paul, I know you've been part of the promotion pretty much since day one, maybe since day one or before, but you must be pretty proud with everything you've seen, everything UBW has achieved and has become in that time.
Yeah, immensely. I mean, everyone that's come through there that has gone on, and I was saying this to you before on the podcast as well. I've been looking around. I always keep my eyes on everything that's going on the scene, and I noticed a few posters recently for Sacrifice, for I forget who else it was, but a couple of other companies, and a large proportion of the card is UBW trained talent. And you look at them, and you can name off a few. You know, Charles Crowley, Memes, Evie Madden, Tommy Kyle, Truman Roswell, Ricky Calvey, Josh Spicer. These are permeating across the entire scene now, and they're getting their name out there into the local promotions, out into the bigger promotions as well. And of course, Stevie Turner from NXT UK is obviously my proudest moment. But it's such a great lineup of stars that are out there, and I personally I don't credit myself. Okay, I've trained these people up and they've done fantastic things, but they have to have it in them themselves as well. I can only help facilitate it. And all I do is pass on the training that I got from my trainer, Justin Richards, who is fantastic. He trained some of the best the country's ever seen. And I just give everyone the tools and the confidence, and then they go out there and do it themselves. Every single one of them is a star because they've got it in them. If I've been a part of that and I've helped them, that's fantastic. My focus is on bringing people up to the big time.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about some of those that have got. I mean, if you look at some of the real success stories, you mentioned Stevie Turner, Bobbie Tyler, that has been doing some great things over the last year, 2 years with NXT UK and NXT and whatever else the future holds for Stevie there. Charles Crowley, who's become a sensation, certainly since the UK scene came back last summer. He's just exploded all over the country, doing amazing things, and just appears to have got over bigger than he ever could have imagined in Progress with his recent return match against Elijah. Absolutely fantastic, and a former Young Lions champion and British heavyweight champion with UBW, of course. So many others. Tommy Kyle, which is an extraordinary talent, so innovative in his offense. But not only does he have the innovation, he's got the groundwork as well. He's got the tech skills as well. And like I say, I can keep going on. And of course, Memes, you know, what a fantastic talent he is. And for a big man, what he can do in the ring is truly phenomenal. So many more. But let's talk about some of the newer talent that are breaking through, and some that might have been making a bit of a name for themselves in some groups over the last year or so, but certainly the new breed, shall we call them, or you know, your boys and girls in the Square One Training Academy. And I've got a little picture here, a recent picture from behind UBW. You've obviously got Harrison Leon there, you've got Tony Sin, Adonis Payne, Artemis there. Not too familiar with the guy on the right-hand side, but I'm sure you'll kind of fill me in a minute. Yourself in the center there, you know, and that's just, you know, Frankie Idol there, or Freddie Idol, sorry. And then, of course, the Square One champion, Leo Edwards. And, of course, your tag team champions, Artemis and Adonis Payne. So a fantastic crop, and there's probably so many more that I haven't mentioned. But once again, this cycle just continues, doesn't it? And you just seem to have this formula that just seems to create fantastic wrestlers in your area.
One of the things that I try and do, and again, I learned this from my trainer, from Justin Richards, I don't try and teach everyone to be the best wrestler that UBW can have. I teach them to be the best that they can be. And I teach everyone different. I know there's some schools out there where there's a set way they teach everyone the same, and then they let them work it out themselves. I try and customize it to every single person. My sessions now that I do every week, I don't take the beginners anymore. I'm now just working with the more advanced talents, the ones that are on shows or just coming up. And the focus of our sessions are, right, how do we do your stuff the best way for you? How do we personalize it? How do we make it fit your character or your gimmick? How do we make what you're doing make sense for you? And everything is customized. So when they're going out on the scene, they're an individual brand. And I'm always teaching them about how important branding is. If you're going to do this bunch of moves that you've seen, that's fantastic, but put your little stank on it yourself. And every single person, it's about making them the best version of them. I also try and use the Paul Heyman approach. amplify their strengths and hide their weaknesses. And that's a key thing that a lot of people don't do. So then that way they're out there, they're being the best they can be. And it's obviously working because they're all getting out there and getting names for themselves. And they're all lighting the place up. Like that picture there, it's one of the most happiest pictures I've had in wrestling for many years, because that there is a crew. You've got Harrison Leon, who is an absolute physical phenomenon. He's like 6'5", 6'6", athletic, good looking, tremendous charisma, which you can, to paraphrase a great person, you can't teach that. Tony Sin, who is an absolute natural at this. He's an antagonist. He's a great character. He's great in the ring. He's always wrong, but he's a great talent. Adonis Payne, phenomenal natural talent for this. Picked it up immediately, and everyone is seeing it now. He's getting a lot of places. Artemis, out of this world. Just an enigma in terms of her style, her look, her way she works. She's got the right professionalism, the right mindset. She's so mature about everything, and she's just there's no ceiling for her. And on the end there, a big beardy, that's Josh Spicer, who's our current Young Lions champion. Phenomenal talent, been around a few years, hadn't really been used to his potential. Came to us, wasn't the most confident in his own ability, but by working with me, he's now one of the lives of the locker room. He's one of the most colourful people. And all I've helped try and do is give him that confidence to unlock what he's got inside. And he belongs on any show at the moment. He's so good, not even tapped into his ability yet.
Yeah, and apologies, Josh, for not recognising you on the end there. Of course, you are the current Young Lions champion. But and I want to ask you, how important is that guy to your left, but to the right of the photo there, Tommy Kyle? Because I understand that he is an integral part of training a lot of that talent from the get-go, isn't he?
Yeah, I was about to say that guy in the picture is very important, Paul Ashe. He's a very important guy.
There you go.
So Tommy Kyle is incredibly important on a professional and personal level. I've always said with training schools, you get three types of people that come in. You get people that are natural. They pick it up straight away. They're destined for this. Crowley was one of those. Adonis Payne's another. You get people that aren't naturals. It takes them a bit longer, but they learn it and they get good at it. Ricky Calvey was there at one point. Memes had the right charisma, but he took a while to get the in-ring. And you get some people that is not destined for it. Tommy Kyle, day one, had it. He understood it. He was an absolute, almost savant in terms of the technical capabilities, the physical side of it from day zero. And he's got a mind for it like no other. He's been promoted up in the last year or so to training at Square One, and he takes the beginners. He takes some of the middle level as well. And he gives them the foundations. And, you know, you look at people like Adonis Payne, Artemis, Harrison Leon, Tony Sin. They started with Tommy Kyle. I've helped them become their individual selves and shape who they are as characters. But their fundamentals, their basics are because of Tommy. He is an incredible talent, great trainer, and he's been a very good friend to me over the years as well. He's helped me out on various occasions, on a lot of personal stuff. And me and him are kind of like parents to that lot. I don't know which one of us is the father, which one is the mother. That's up to debate. But we literally like a parent to take it all.
Excellent, and we've had somebody reach out already via YouTube. A certain Tom Hollylee. Have you have you watched the Star Wars prequel yet? Damn it!
I've been getting grief from him for so long. He's a massive Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I like Star Wars, but I happened to mention that I've never watched the prequels. I then got threatened with being deleted from his phone book and never being spoken to again. And just a torrent of abuse for about 4 hours straight. The answer is not yet, mate. I'm still trying to work through the first one. It was not good, so I'm waiting. I've seen the other 6, so don't worry so much. I'll get round to it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Tom, for watching. Let me stick in with Square One and UBW, because one thing that's always struck me as well, whenever you release a card, there always seems to be a good mix of the newer talent up against an experienced pro, an experienced guy. And one good example of that didn't quite come to fruition was you was meant to have had Tony Sin versus Crowley at the last show. However, Smashing Mike stepped in at the 11th hour as a more than adequate replacement for Crowley. Smashing Mike is like say, one of the best pros there is in the area. I had him on the show earlier on this year. Fantastic guy as well. and I'm sure they absolutely tore it up. But like I say, that pattern, and I know kind of what you're going to say to me, but like I say, that pattern, it really, really does help the younger, newer talent to kind of flourish in the ring from somebody that's a bit more established. But that's obviously something you do on purpose, isn't it, Paul?
Absolutely. You can put two newbies in there and they will be able to do their thing, but they won't necessarily know, because they won't have the experience, they won't necessarily know what to do if the crowd goes down, or if the crowd starts losing it, or if they forget what they're doing, or they get a bit lost in there. The experience can help slow them down, tell them what to do, give them a bit of a pointer, give them some moments, try and take the moments in rather than just going through the motions. And it's really key. And I think that's why I've got a very mixed roster as well, to have that balance of talent and new, and making sure that when we do these cards, we have those as much as possible, working with each other. Like this weekend, tomorrow, Square One in Stevenage, come down. We've got Freddie Idle, who is a great up-and-coming talent, working against Spike Valentine. Spike Valentine, former British champion, been around many years. I helped train him up when he's first started out, and he was elsewhere and he came back to us. Spike is an incredible talent. He'll be the veteran in this, and he will help bring Freddie up that next level, because Freddie's only had a few matches so far. Spike's going to help him with the crowd, with the pacing, with the timing. It's going to help bring that extra level out of him. And it's where these extra layers of the more experienced ones come in, to get these up-and-comers to get that experience and get them more rounded.
Yeah, 100%. And for anybody that might be watching this and might be interested in getting involved in the wrestling game, getting involved in the wrestling business, starting their training, how can they reach out? How can they get started specifically with yourself and with Tom at Square One?
So we've just moved to a brand new facility in Hitchin, which is just outside of Stevenage, straight up the A1M. Very easy to get to. It's a full functioning facility as well. We've got a training ring in there. We've got an entire weights area. It's a gym built into it as well. There are classes every day, all week, non-stop. You've got access, I think it's from 7 to 11 throughout every day. And there's so much on offer. There's beginners classes, there's one-to-ones, there's advanced classes, there's seminars. We've just had a seminar already, Dennis. We've got another one coming up soon, which I don't think I can mention who it is yet, but it's a big one to learn from. But Square One on Facebook, you can go to them, go to that page there, speak to Justin or myself, and get yourselves into it all, whether you're a pro, whether you're a newbie. It's a fantastic place to get started or to get the reps in. We've got a lot of guys from the NXT UK guys were there regularly throughout the end of the pandemic when we started to track back up. Various Progress guys go there as well. And it's a really good opportunity to get that all different levels of training. And it's very accessible as well. It's in the middle of the country, straight up the A1M. I used to travel about 2 hours to get to training every week. So, most people can get there very easily. It's the most comprehensive training school around in the area by far.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're with your trainees at the Square One training camp there, do you have any specific? I know if we check your socials, you do post fairly often about your kind of philosophies on professional wrestling and the things you like and the things you don't like. And do you kind of pass those opinions or philosophies down to your trainees in terms of how you think wrestling should be?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have an open door policy with them in terms of they can always come to me and ask me stuff. I mean, literally, I have a full-time job, but literally this week I've spent a couple of hours every day talking to people about this weekend's event, advice on certain ideas they've had, feedback on moves they want to try, just hurling abuse at Tony Sin because that's what we do. But yeah, I'm always trying to pass down those kind of ideas and philosophies. I say to everyone, there isn't a right way of doing this. There isn't a by the books way of doing it. There's various ways, there's various approaches. As long as it works, it's right in terms of the audience. But I teach them the stuff that's going to make sense and kind of get them the furthest. Be a brand. Make a brand understandable. Make it likable. Make it connectable. Make stuff make sense. Understand you do have a bump card. You really do have a bump card. And just try and enjoy it. And it's getting those kind of mindsets in with people. So when I'm booking people on shows, I will have a bit of control over things and say, look, don't do this or do this or that kind of stuff, because I'm trying to get them to have as much of a time out of it as I have, if possible. So yeah, I do give them a lot of grief about the way they should be doing things to help their career.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a deep dive into your fandom then, Paul, if we can. And can you remember when professional wrestling first came into your life, and what sort of impact did it have on you at the time?
I remember it vividly. It was 1991. I happened to stumble across it on TV. Sid Vicious was coming to the ring, and I thought, what is that? What is that enormous human being on my television? He then destroyed somebody in about a minute flat, and I was like, this is something quite special. And it was WCW Worldwide, and I then caught it all the time. And it was just the pizzazz of it all, the characters, the grandioseness of it all. I was really taken by it. And when I was at school, I didn't have any real hobbies. I wasn't into sport. I didn't have a wide circle of friends, kind of quite self-sufficient. I had Transformers, my He-Man figures. That was my kind of little world.
So did
and then
I, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, there was this new thing that came into it, and it was real life superheroes. So I'd seen people like He-Man, I'd seen people like Thundercats, and all of a sudden there was these superheroes come to life, and I was really kind of taken by it, and it really gave me an anchor to find something to be passionate about, to put myself into, and it just completely took my life over. I watched every single minute of every single bit of programming that was on TV. It was everything to me.
Yeah. And who were some of the larger-than-life characters that really jumped out with you? You mentioned Sid Vicious there. He certainly jumped out at me when I was watching WWE or WWF back in the day, The Undertaker, Hogan, Ric Flair. But what about yourself? And did your kind of taste or love for pro wrestling change as you got older? But start with the characters anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the first guys that I saw that just kind of blew my mind was the Ultimate Warrior. And he's a very divisive wrestler for a lot of reasons, but looking at it one-dimensionally in terms of a wrestling character, he was color, he was vibrance, he was madness, he was substances. He was just this wild kind of wild man, and I was absolutely blown away by that the first time I saw it. Bret Hart as well. Bret Hart was this. He was cool. He was calm. He was better than everybody else. Razor Ramon was a guy that first time I saw him, I really hated him, but I couldn't help be drawn to him because he was so charismatic. Vader was one of my first ones. I loved Vader. The man was just a monster. And you watch Godzilla movies, this is in real life.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of this kind of the bigger characters. And I think at the time, and everyone says this because you always, the time you find a fandom is when you think is the golden era. It's nostalgia, which is fair. But I honestly think that the early 90s were some of the golden times, because I came into it and you had Vader, Sting, Steve Austin, Barry Windham, Arn Anderson, Rick Rude, Ric Flair, Razor Ramon, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels. It was just a who's who of the best of all time. And I was kind of spoiled for choice of just watching quality wrestlers. And of course, that changed a lot over time when you go into things like the Attitude Era, and tastes kind of varied. But yeah, it was always about the bigger than life characters for me, always.
Yeah. Did you eventually fall into ECW at some stage? Because I noticed on your socials you have posted a few ECW clips, in particular a very early match that I absolutely loved between a very young Rey Mysterio and Psychosis, probably around 94, 95, kind of early days of Extreme Championship Wrestling. But did you go more into the indies from kind of your teenage years onwards?
I did. It was only when I met Phil Bedwell. Phil, who's my closest friend in the world, and we've known each other since '94. Phil was in the tape trading scene, which I didn't know anything about really, and he would get tapes from all over the world. And he got the first ever ECW pay-per-view the night the line was crossed, and we sat and watched that, and I was just blown away that this is completely different to what I've seen on. I've been watching on one channel Henry Godwinn and Savio Vega, and all of a sudden I'm seeing Sabu and Rob Van Dam and Rey Mysterio, and I'm thinking, what is this?
Yeah.
It was just the Wild West. It was incredible. And yeah, I absolutely loved the original ECW. Phil introduced me to the Japanese side of thing as well. I kind of New Japan, All Japan Women, and all of a sudden my world just exploded. And what I thought wrestling was just did that. But yeah, early days ECW. I still watch it now, and it's good and bad, but the good is something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo all of that because I got into a bit of tape trading around the same time, and all the Japanese stuff would come over to my house, all the ECW stuff and all the kind of North American indies as well. So such really, really good times. We don't know how good we had it back then, to be honest with you. It was a bugger to get the footage, but when you got it, it was golden for sure. And did you always have a desire to maybe one day make it into the business yourself? Was that, something, was that like a light bulb moment? You walked past a training school and thought, right, I'm going to go there next week? Or was it something you always wanted to do, Paul?
I never thought it was possible.
Really?
I was school, I hated sports. I tried to get out of doing sports at all costs. I'm 5'9" in big boots. I was always an unsporty, quiet, unassuming child. I thought something like that was completely out of the realms of possibility. Then I met Phil. We used to have weekly matches in my back garden with a mattress, which we stole out of somebody's front yard. Should have done that. God knows what happened on that. And then back when, do you remember Power Slam magazine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before it was Power Slam, it was called Superstars of Wrestling. Correct. And I used to get it every week. I used to love it. I used to get all the news. And there was a little ad in there one week, and it said, 2-day weekend training course at Hammerlock Wrestling. Come along and learn how to be a wrestler. Phil found it and showed it to me, and he went, let's do it. And every bit in my head was saying, this is not you. But there was a little bit of when, if you don't do it, you'll never forgive yourself. And it was just on a whim. We went, do you know what? Let's do it. Let's buy the tickets. We both had been bodybuilding for a few years. We both done karate for a while. So we kind of like, okay, physicality, let's see how we go. And we just went down there, and it just went from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to get into all of that in a minute. Just a few more people that have got in touch. I think this is Glenn Barker via Facebook, but it hasn't popped up his name here. Great podcast, guys. Really enjoying this. Thank you so much for watching. Do appreciate it. And I think this is Andy Howarth. I think that's how you pronounce it. Square One is definitely the place. A recent start to myself through my brother, and I don't regret a thing. So thank you, Andy, for getting in touch there. And Tom, getting in touch again via YouTube. Thank you very much for watching, Tom. Is there any advice you've received from outside of wrestling that you applied to wrestling, or vice versa? And if so, what's the piece of advice that you'd pass on? So a really interesting question there, Tom.
I think I mentioned it before, branding. Being a brand in wrestling is what sets you apart. You can have a fantastic moveset, you can have a fantastic character, you can have a fantastic look. If you aren't a brand, you're going to find it so much harder. And that branding encompasses everything. It's your look, it's your personality, it's your persona, it's what you sell to people. I studied advertising a bit for a while, and they say in advertising that you've got about 3 to 5 seconds of an advert starting to grab people's attention. And I push this onto everybody. Doesn't matter what you do in the ring. If you haven't got those people on your side, by the time you've got to the end of the aisleway, a lot of them will switch off. So I'm always banging on them about branding. It's how you look, get the right gear, get the right look to yourself, have a tan, You don't have to be jacked up, but look like you believe in yourself. And I apply that into the real life as well, my everyday job. Me, Paul, the actual person, the idea of standing up in my job in front of a whole room full of people and doing a presentation, oh, God, I get sweats thinking about it. So when I go and I have to do those things, I become Paul Ashe, the wrestler.
Wow.
And I put on the persona. And I have a very good thing at my shoot job of relationship management. I'm very good at working with people across departments. And it's because I'm a wrestler when I'm there. And I channel that. And I am a brand when I'm there. But that's honestly the thing that I tell everyone. Branding and understand branding and advertising. It's everything.
Great advice. And off air, we confirmed that you started training 26 years ago. I think you said you were around 18, 19 years old. What were them early days, or maybe early months and years, like for yourself? Cutting your teeth, learning the ropes quite literally, and maybe getting the odd book in here and there. But did you adapt well? Were you a good trainee? Did you take to it naturally?
I think doing martial arts for a while was always a great help, because you learn about discipline, you learn about attitude. And I was always very, very focused on having the right attitude. being a student. So I took that into wrestling as well. And I was very fortunate that I had fantastic trainers in Justin Richards and Andre Baker, who ran Hammerlock. Justin is like Yoda to me and to many other people. If Justin walked into my school now and said, everything you're doing is wrong, do it differently, I would take his word that much. Did I pick it up instantly? No. On day one, I was almost throwing up just by being dizzy. But I kept at it. And one of the first things that was said to me and Phil was, you guys have got heart. And that's the most important thing. And we just wanted it. And we just always had the right attitude, always listened, always took advice, and just kept plugging away. And yeah, the first few years, bearing in mind, Hammerlock was one of, I think, only 2 schools in the country, maybe. And the other one was way up north to go to. So you didn't have a lot to pick from in terms of either training or shows. But yeah, just plugged away at it. And it was the Wild West in the early days. There was a lot of people that weren't that well trained. And it was still that kind of crossover between the old world of sport days and a few people still from those days. And then this new kind of up and coming new version of wrestling, kind of ECW style. And it was that trying to meld those together wasn't easy. And we were coming up from this side, but trying to incorporate with this side. Yeah. It took a bit of work, but luckily we were surrounded by a lot of very, very good people like Doug Williams, Jody Fleisch, Jonny Storm, Justin Richards, just a lot of great talent at the time that were willing to help us.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably completely wrong here. I don't know. But is there a Dave Taylor and a William Regal connection with your training?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. So it was 2004, I think it was. I was training at Dropkicks at the time. And Frank Reimer, who was the lead trainer there, who passed away recently, rest his soul, wonderful human being. Frank offered me the opportunity, myself and a few others. So Martin Stone, aka Danny Burch from NXT, Leeway Kincaid, who was a big star in the mid-2000s, Sky, former female wrestler, fantastic talent, and a couple of others whose names escape me. The opportunity to go over and train with Dave Taylor because he had connections with Dave, and Dave was still running what was the Blue Bloods Academy, where he and William Regal had started that up in Atlanta, Georgia. And Dave basically wanted to get some more students over where possible. So we went over there 2 years running and trained under Dave and Regal as well. Regal came in, and Regal at this time was trying to get Daniel Bryan into the WWE. So he came along with Daniel Bryan to a few of our training sessions, and we got the chance to work with and train with both of the Blue Bloods and a little bit with Daniel Bryan as well. And unbelievable experience, and I learned so much just in 2 weeks over 2 years with both those guys. Just phenomenal learning opportunity.
Anything in particular that you feel you took away from those training sessions and seminars with Dave and with William that you probably still practice or maybe teach out today?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just around kind of like attitude and discipline, but lots of technical approaches. I mean, I'd done a few bits before this point in terms of rounds matches, old school kind of world of sports style. But they then made all of that stuff make sense, where I'd had to kind of learn it on the fly. Dave and Regal helped teach that to make it make sense. Taught us a lot about, working to the business and kind of how to mind your P's and Q's. Regal taught us a tremendous amount about neck bridging. He would do a thing where you have to walk backwards down a wall. And the basic thing was, if you can't touch your nose to the floor, it doesn't count. Ooh. He would have us doing neck bridges over and over again to get our arches going properly and our bridging. And it was great training. And it was just, let's just work you hard in 100-degree heat, get bumping, get moving, get stretching. And they put us through the ringer. And the second year we went, we had a day with, and again, it's a controversial name, but Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
The year before everything happened, he came along and he trained with us for a whole day, and it was his day off. And him and Regal basically come up to us and said, right, you're going to get in there with us and we're going to work. I said, well, what are we going to do? And they went, you'll find out. And we did 60 minutes flat, straight, working just the two of them. And they were just working with us on the fly, nothing planned, just work with us. We'll put you in stuff, get out of it. We'll feed you things, work your way out of it. And I learned more in that 1 hour than all of the 5-6 years previous. It was unbelievable.
Incredible, incredible. Now, I'm going to bring up another picture here, and you mentioned his name already, but look at them two good-looking chaps there. I think the new breed, wasn't it? Was the team? It was Ashe and Curve. Obviously, yep. Curve is Phil Bedwell. We'll talk a bit more about him in a second. But you two, like I say, good friends, got into the business together, started training together. And started teaming together as well. And I think one company that particularly jumps out to mind is FWA. And between 2000 and 2002, you picked up their tag straps twice, not once, but twice. And I think the first reign was over 400 days, 421 days, that first title reign, which is truly phenomenal. And then you picked it up again. I think you lost it to a pretty impressive combo. I think Ulf Herman and Drew McDonald, you lost it to the second time round. But thinking back to them early days with Phil, with Curve, and I know that you guys have tagged, like I say, over the last 20 years. But like I say, predominantly in the 2000s, mid-2000s, you two were a regular fixture on the tag team scene up and down the country. But certainly the FWA days looked like an absolute blast and a great amount of success for you two.
Yeah, the FWA was, it's the best way of putting it. The FWA wasn't so much a wrestling promotion; it was a happening. It was like a fixed point in time. When the FWA started, ECW was kind of the hot thing at the time, and the American Indies were starting to come up. When we were in the FWA, we treated it like ECW in the sense of we are this new generation of all these young upstarts: George Castano, Paul Travell, Scotty Rock, Scott Parker, myself and Phil, and all these other people who nobody knew. And we weren't the old school. So there was a little bit of kind of like, who are these people coming in and changing what wrestling is? So we took it upon ourselves to treat it like ECW in the sense of we're trying to change what the status quo is. We're trying to bring wrestling back to life. We're going to do things differently. We're going to do things in a very unusual way, how it hasn't been done before. You've got all these guys who look very different. You've got all these guys with very different characters. We're a little bit counterculture, we're a little bit punk rock, we're a little bit alternative. This is what we are. And it exploded. It was the biggest company in the UK for quite a long while. First company to have a TV program. We were on mainstream TV as well. And it launched the careers of so many people. It was a community, literally. It sounds cheesy, but it was. And we all were working together to make this thing happen, to bring wrestling back to life. When myself and Phil started there wasn't a tag team scene. I think there was only one other regular tag team going, which was the UK Pitbulls. Apart from that, I don't think there was any other regular teams. And we wanted to bring tag team wrestling to life. And that was the kind of vehicle to do it. And that 400-day reign helped build a tag team scene. And yeah, it was just a phenomenal ride at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, you guys have been lifelong friends, friends throughout your wrestling career up until today, and we'll talk a little bit more about Phil in a second. But do you have any fond memories or fond matches that you're particularly proud of from you two being on the scene together as the new breed for all them years, and in particular, like I say, them glory days of the early and mid 2000s?
Yeah, I mean, definitely not that picture where we're both really, really skinny. That's not but, yeah, I mean, we were extremely lucky that we were surrounded by some great talents. We had the early days working with George Castano and Scotty Rock, who were a tag team called the Misfits. George Castano is a fantastic talent. He's like a cross between Kurt Angle and a Tasmanian devil. George had this wonderful thing. He would grab you and throw you, and you would quite often say, George, what are you doing? What's happening? Oh, it's okay. It's okay. And he'd start to throw you and you go, what's going? And he'd throw you and he'd go, suplex, as you're flying through the air. Thanks, George. But he taught us so much. We were very lucky to work with the UK Pitbulls early on. Two unbelievable talents. Two super heavyweights that can move like they're 100 pounds lighter than they are. Tremendous psychology, tremendous characters. The minute they walk out, everyone's just, whoa, these guys. Wonderful time, wonderful chemistry working with them. And I think one of our proudest ones, there's two. 2001, we worked a young tag team called The Boys, long before the Amazon TV show. Sticks was one half, and another guy called Pliers. Pliers didn't carry on in the wrestling business. Wonderful guy, but he had other things going on. But Sticks' first ever, I think possibly his second ever match. And we went in there with them, and both of them, between them, had like, one, maybe two matches at most. So it was on us to try and carry them through it. Didn't have to. They were great natural talents, but we had what was match of the night and one of the best matches around that time with these two guys who hadn't done anything, completely new. And between the four of us, we created something beautiful. And then the year following that, it was a tag team gauntlet match. Several teams, and we come in, and then the Pitbulls come in at the end and murder us. And it was this very risky thing of like, a tag team gauntlet match can lose people because it goes on a while, there's a lot going on. It was in Walthamstow, our hometown. We had the entire place on their feet by the end of that match. And it was just, you could feel the people in the building. And we created something quite beautiful, all of us together that night. And it was definitely one of our proudest moments. It was a phenomenal match.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have somebody else get in touch watching via Facebook. I love the FWA long before 1PW, who are my first UK wrestling shows during my teenage years. I missed those years. I think a lot of people do, to be honest with you. And sticking with Curve or Phil Bedwell, he was at the most recent UBW show, wasn't he, this past Sunday? And I've got a picture here where he teamed with another good friend of yours, Skip, of course, Sunset Skip, versus the tag team champions, the Odyssey, for the straps, for the titles, and there they are, there hulking up, getting ready for the show. And of course, I think this was possibly, well, maybe a different show, but there we go. You're embracing your good long-time friend there, Phil. But what was it like to kind of have him back on a UBW card this past Sunday? I know, like I say, you making your return as well. Must have been a special occasion for you both.
Yeah, it's always fantastic having Phil around. I mean, we are literally as close as brothers, and we can just connect in with each other so easily. But he's got such a plethora of knowledge and talent to give to the younger generation. Since he's been back doing shows, he's been able to be in there with Adonis Payne, with Truman Roswell, this week with Adonis again and an Artemis. And he's got so much knowledge, so much experience to pass on and help people learn and help people get better. He's great with the crowd. He's a great character. The minute he walks out, he's engaging. He was always the charisma and the character of the team when we were tagging. I was always the one that got the life beaten out of me, and Phil would make the save. But Phil taught me how to be a character in wrestling, because I had no idea. But he would work the apron. He would get the crowd going. He would be the charisma when we're in there. And in our early matches, you can literally see me looking to him for what he's doing, so I knew what to do. I've seen him have a crowd in the palm of his hand. He gets it. He understands it. And he's so good to have around, because he wants the younger generation to learn and to help them. And he's there for advice. And it was great having him back there. And of course, Skip, we go back 20 years. I've done the roads with Skip. I've lived with Skip. We are very close as well, and it was so good having two of my closest friends in the wrestling business sitting next to me, just criticizing me about, you're going to blow up in about 2 minutes. It was great. Wonderful.
Oh, I hope they didn't rib you about the injury after the match. I hope they didn't rib you. They may well have done, maybe a little bit, who knows. But once again, another example of, like I say, established veterans of the scene, giving back to the industry, giving back to the younger talent. And I'd say a fantastic match was had, I'm sure. And just looking at some of your singles action as well, and in particular some of the talent that you would have faced in the mid to late 2000s. The likes of Johnny Kidd. You mentioned the UK Pitbulls with Curve, of course. Frankie Sloan, Martin Stone, Jonny Storm, Doug Williams, and so many more. That must have been, I know that you would have been a few years into the business already yourself, but still facing some of those talents must have been a real education for yourself and a fun time in the ring as well. Yeah,
I mean, when I worked with Johnny Kidd, obviously I'd done bits and pieces of the style of the World of Sport style, but never to the degree that Jonny had. And it was Jonny is such a talent. You were always told this thing about Jonny. It was like an urban myth that Jonny will put himself into holds and you won't know, and you'll find yourself all of a sudden you've got him in a hold and you didn't put it on. And yeah, that was so stupid. And I found that out to be very true. You'd be working with him, and all of a sudden you'd go, "Where did that happen?" And he's on the floor, and I'm like, "What?" And it was just an experience of learning with him. And I took some things along that I'd seen on World of Sport, which he was really excited to do. And we had a wonderful time wrestling together, and phenomenal human being. Working with Doug, this is after Doug had done Noah, so it's a very different Doug to I'd come through in the FWA with. Very different style, but Doug's unbelievable as a performer. Jonny as well. I've known Jonny since day one. Again, easy night working with Jonny. It's so automatic because he's so good. I honestly think Johnny's the best of all time that the UK's ever produced. I really do. And yeah, just so many others. I was very fortunate to work with just constant great talent throughout the mid to late 2000s. It was educational, at least.
Yeah, and something that struck me while I was doing my research and looking at all their names around that period of time, that also appeared to me to be the time when you started to really hit your stride as a performer as well, and in particular as a solo act. Don't know if you'd agree with me there, but kind of the mid to late 2000s as a solo performer in particular seemed to be your time.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't until about 2003 that I actually started doing solo stuff, and I had zero confidence to do it at first, and it was almost like starting completely again. But I was very fortunate to have a lot of great talent to work with. And yeah, I think because it was about 06-ish that I started working in IPW, tagging again, but tagging with a guy called Chris Linnell, and we had a run there. And it was there when I kind of really got into a rhythm, and I was confident in myself. I was confident being experienced, and I could go in there and lead a match, and I could lead people, and I could work with upper talents and stuff. And yeah, it was just a good run of quite a few years of just one after the other. And I think having confidence in yourself and your ability is the key thing. And luckily at that point, I had that.
Yeah, one match that really jumped out at me was the cage match you had with Chris Linnell in 2006 with IPW UK. What do you remember about that? Because the photos and the footage that I have been able to unearth, it looks like a pretty brutal match. You went through the ringer, you bled a bit as well. What do you remember about that one? That certainly seems to be a match from your solo career that really stands out.
So I was going into that match. It was a retirement match. The idea would be that was my done. I was finished and done that night. I'd had a shoulder injury a few months prior. I'd torn my labrum, which is the same injury that Sheamus had.
Yeah.
And stupidly, as wrestlers do, I didn't get it seen to, didn't get it surgery done or anything. I just took a tremendous amount of painkillers. And going into that match, I was not in a very good physical or mental state whatsoever. One, facing the prospect that my wrestling career was over long before its time, as I felt. Two, the fact that I was dealing with, quite honestly, a painkiller addiction. And I was suffering quite bad of a lot of things. So going into that match, my mindset was just, I'll leave everything in here and take all the risks possible, because if I end up long-term damage from this, at least I've gone out on a high, which is a really stupid mindset to have. It really is. But yeah, I went into that with my shoulder in pieces. I could barely even lift it. I took a tremendous amount of pain medication and Red Bull to get through it. And I was just giving Chris all these stupid things, like give me an RKO off the top of the cage, drop kick my head into the cage, give me a DDT off the top, and all of this kind of stuff. And it was going fine until the RKO from the top. And as I landed, I felt the partial tear completely through. And I literally just lay down and went, Chris, it's time we go home. And he's like, are you sure? It's time we go home, Chris. I'm on borrowed time. And then we got through the end of it. And I then took a while off. I was off and out of wrestling for about a year, healing up. And of course, the sickness is there. You come back, you do it again. But It was a very, very physical match because my mindset going into it was quite self-destructive, but I'm very proud of it. I think we created something amazing. It was just very painful, very painful.
Yeah. And I just want to remind anybody watching live at home, we've still got a few minutes. So if you've got any questions, you want to send Paul Ashe's way, then please do so. But I'm going to bring up a picture. And you mentioned about Sunset Skip a moment ago. And another guy that I think kind of weaves in and out of your career throughout the majority of your career is this guy here, RJ Singh. And there's Skip and RJ there. I'm assuming that RJ is somebody that you've known for many years, performed with, booked, and probably had a pint with or two. But any fond memories of working with RJ over the years?
Yeah, Little Dragon's the best. Little Dragon is the absolute best. RJ first started training at the FWA school when myself and Phil were about 3 years in to wrestling. And again, immediate natural talent. He was kind of leading the juniors class after about 6 months of training.
Wow.
Phenomenal mind for the business. The Peter Pan of wrestling. He doesn't age. I've had the pleasure of working with RJ many times in tags and singles. We worked together quite a bit in Lucha Britannia. He's just so good. And myself, Phil, Skip, and RJ have a group chat every day. And a lot of it is just friendship. It's just, let's keep in touch with each other. It's very important, I think, after COVID. I think you've got a bit of a kind of different appreciation of time and people. And I think we've kind of got together that for that reason. Let's keep in touch with each other. Let's make sure everyone else is okay. Let's keep our friendship going. And we meet up as often as we can. We're actually meeting up next weekend for our annual Christmas do, where we'll just sit down and be old and talk about the old days. But yeah, it's people that you've gone through the trenches with and been through the wars with. Like, you think between the four of us, we've seen every age of the British wrestling scene, from the end of the World of Sport era to the FWA days to the explosion of the imports and stuff in the mid 2000s to the modern scene where we are now. We've been through all of it. We've seen everyone come and go. And we've all kind of got the same kind of war wounds, if you will. But yeah, RJ's a phenomenal person. He's one of those people you won't find somebody in wrestling that doesn't like him. He's really annoying in that sense. Nobody dislikes him. He's a wonderful guy.
100%. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 2013 marks the 10th anniversary of UBW. And I think you've been there pretty much from the beginning. How does your journey with UBW start? How were you first introduced? And how do you become part of that journey?
So I started out, just as talent. I was working on another show that some friends came along to, including Justin, who runs UBW. And he basically said, I'd love to get the new breed on. So, yep, fine. So we worked the first show, which was a banger of a show in, I think it was St Albans. And from about show 2 onwards, I was kind of helping with some of the booking, helping with some of the match layouts, with some of the younger talent. And after about the 3rd show, I stepped in to help out with a few bits and pieces because one of the original people that was running it moved on. So I then stepped in to help out, put my experience to practice. And I was also helping out at the FWA, the UBW school at that time. And it kind of picked up from there in terms of taking up the full-time head trainer at the school, leading the booking team for the UBW shows, and kind of getting everybody up to speed. And what was going to be kind of a helping point became everything. And I basically now book the talent, I teach the talent, I do all the outreach, all the graphics, all of the social media, along with a couple of others. Justin does all the behind the scenes, all the booking of the venues, or the organisation, the business side, and then I'm on the creative side. And between us, we try and run it as the way it is now. But yeah, it's just grown and grown. And yeah, next year's our 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And it's quite mental. I think we're up to about 90 shows we've run now in our time. So yeah, it's going to be a really good 10-year anniversary. And I just look back and think of everyone that's come through, and I'm very, very proud of all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to try my best to get down there for that 10th anniversary. I think it's going to be a show that you don't want to miss. Now, this past summer, or maybe kind of early autumn, this guy here CJ Carter announced his retirement due to injuries. I know that CJ is another person that's very close to your heart, somebody that you've got to know very well over the years. And of course, I'm going to bring that graphic up one more time because UBW did a special thank you to CJ Carter celebration in October, which was a real momentous occasion, a fantastic show. And there you see Chris or CJ with both UBW belts there during that show. So a fantastic show, a great send-off for Chris, but a hell of a talent. And like I say, such a shame that he's had to retire so early. And probably one of the most underrated UK talents out there. What were your kind of thoughts on CJ? Like I say, had a phenomenal career, and I'm guessing another good friend of yours.
Yeah, and it's funny because CJ came along to the old UBW school one Sunday and mentioned that he'd known me for years. And I've got a terrible memory at the best of times, but I was just kind of thought, I can't place him. And then I actually thought that I knew him from a previous training school, whereas it was actually from a completely different one. So we went a good year of me thinking that I knew him from X when I actually knew him from Y. But no, Chris is, it's a crime that he didn't get more than he got. He is as good as anyone else out there on the scene, and he should have been right up at the main top of it all, I think. UBW is kind of in two phases. There was the bit up until end of 2017 where we were doing okay, very small time. And then in 2017, 2018, it kind of turned around. And that was when the likes of Crowley, Memes, Tommy Kyle, Truman all came up. But it's when CJ came in as well. And there was an immediate uptake in the quality of everything because he's so good. He's the man that helped build Charles Crowley. And I think Crowley would be quite happy to say that as well. His rivalry with Crowley at the beginning helped make Crowley. His work with Percy Traynor, with Memes, with Tommy Kyle, helped elevate all of them. And he was the most consistent, high-octane wow factor on every show that we did. And he was one of the people that really helped take our brand and our product up another level. And he always delivered. And one of the best talents I've ever had the privilege of booking on a show. Absolutely beyond words how good he was. And he never got a chance to really show the world just how good he was.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a privilege of interviewing CJ probably back in 2019 in one of my first ever actual interviews. And he was absolutely fantastic. Still one of my favorite interviews today. And such a great guy. And like I say, when I was seeing him backstage at shows this year, he was always very nice and always remembered me and shook me by the hand. We had a good chat. Yeah, top guy. And I'm sure we'll see him at shows up and down the country in the coming years for sure. I want to talk to you about this now then, Paul, from the Ashes, your very own podcast. It's been going for nearly a couple of years now. Started, I think, February 2021, so approaching its 2-year anniversary, unless I'm mistaken. You have interviewed the biggest and the best names from the UK scene, and a lot of UBW trained talent and guys from that group that have made it great. But what was it that prompted you to start that show to start off with then, Paul? What was the kind of the inspiration behind it?
Boredom in lockdown was a big part of it. That was kind of, I've been toying with the idea for a while, but lockdown kind of gave me the opportunity to do it. But also, it's to get people out there who aren't necessarily the buzz names. So it's very easy to get some of the biggest names that are working the big shows, that are on TV, that are on Progress's radar or on Progress's shows, or NXT UK talent. It's very easy to get those people on and have them involved. And absolutely, why not? They're talents, they're big names. But there's not as much opportunity necessarily for the younger talent that are still on their way up and coming up. So I wanted to use my podcast as an option for people to start learning who these people are. Who is Adonis Payne? Who is Tommy Kyle? Who is Truman Roswell? What are they about? What's their journey been like so far? To kind of get people understanding who these people are, learn about the person behind the wrestler, and start to get their name out there, start to get them a bit of exposure and help build them up. And and that was the entire plan of it. And it's helped a few people definitely. And it's small time. It's a humble little podcast, but the entire idea is to get the people that aren't necessarily stars yet, get them out there, get them seen by people, and get their name on people's lips. And that's the entire idea of it.
Yeah, and you're up to season 3 now, so congratulations on your run of fantastic episodes up to season 3, and you're going to continue with this. I'm assuming you're having fun with it, and season 4, 5, and 6 will be coming in the coming years. But you're having fun with it, and you're going to continue with it, Paul. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I've got 2 in the can that I've recorded that I need to get around to editing. It's been a bit busy, but there over the next couple of weeks to get them out, and then I've got a few more people I want to do to finish off season 3. And I've kind of had a focus on each season of a kind of a theme. Like the first season was people that have really made an impact for UBW and on the scene, talking about them a bit more. Season 2 was a lot kind of our old friends, get some kind of old conversations going. Season 3 has been about the next gen. Yeah. So the people that are now starting to make some noise, starting to come through. Season 4, who knows what it'll be? Maybe I'll get people to interview me. But I am going to plan a session, myself and Tommy Kyle, just having a talk about the trainees that have come through and what we've been doing as trainers to bring them up. And I think that'll be an interesting little deep dive as well. So yeah, still got a lot planned to do.
Yeah, can't wait for that for sure. And highly recommend it. Go and check it out wherever you download your podcast. But we did have somebody reach out to us before we went live tonight. So now it's from an anonymous person asking a few questions there. What size are your boots? Princess shapes and turkey dinosaurs, Carl Fury and Major Lee Rotten. Any insight at all into any of those questions? I'd say the person who sent it to me, completely anonymous, didn't even have a face in their kind of icon picture or anything. Couldn't track it down, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, all I can say is that I won't skip over these questions, even though it's sunset outside. Yeah, to answer your questions, my friend, 9 turkey dinosaurs, definitely the major. The worst.
Thank you, anonymous fan of the show. But as we start to wind down now, like I say, we've had a fantastic conversation. Really, really enjoyed this. But looking back over your 25 years, what would you say has been probably your top 1 or 2 proudest moments within that time? Would it be as a talent, as a booker, as a trainer? What would you say some of them 1 or 2 moments you can really look back on and be ultimately proud until the very last day?
Easy one, first off, having a WWE tryout. Before WWE tryouts in the UK were really a thing. This was 2004-ish. Before it was a regular thing. Every time they come over, they didn't do it back then. And I, because I was the most experienced, I had to do 3 matches back to back. I worked Martin Stone, Sky, and Leroy Kincaid one after the other. That wouldn't have been as bad were it not for the fact that the entire Raw roster was around the ring. So I'm wrestling these 3 matches, looking out, and I'm seeing Chris Jericho, Kane, the Dudley Boys, Ric Flair, Steve Austin, and Triple H.
No pressure.
Watching it work. It was terrifying, but at the same time, empowering. To get a chance to do that when tryouts really weren't a thing, getting told afterwards, you did good, just keep working at your stuff rather than just you're awful, get out of here, and getting a chance to be seen by literally the living legends of the business, it's just indescribable. It was amazing. It was just mind blowing, but that was a lot of fun. And I think on top of that, it's just everyone that's come through UBW that I've trained up. I mean, obviously at the top of the tree, Stevie Turner, having made it to stardom in Japan, made it to NXT UK, making it to the big time. And she's going to be a focal point and a big star going forward. She is my protege. She's like a daughter to me. Seeing her go out and own the world is incredible. Seeing Crowley just become the biggest star that I knew he would be and be the biggest talent, the biggest character on the UK scene, must-see kind of talent. And then everybody else from there, from memes to Tommy Kyle, Truman Roswell, Evie Madden, the Von Englands, everyone else that I've had the pleasure of training that has become a must-see talent or a name. Tremendous pride in them. They call me dad. I'm not paying child support despite that. But they are like my kids, and I'm just so proud of them when they go out there and they're making the impact they have.
Two good examples there, absolutely. And then you mentioned this show tomorrow, the Square One show, December to Remember, December the 10th. Tell us a bit about that. Looks like an interesting poster, an interesting card, featuring a lot of the trainees we've spoken about today.
Yeah. Well, it was November to Remember, and it was a month ago. We had to cancel the show last minute for some administrative issues, but we kept the poster. So hence why it's a kind of V for Vendetta theme in December. That's the reasoning. But nonetheless, tremendous lineup of talent. You've got Leo Edwards there, the Square One champion, Mini Thor as we call him. Great young talent. He's carrying that belt with pride. He's been a great champion. He's come so far. He's a young veteran, that one. You've got the Odyssey there in the top right-hand corner. They just blow everybody away every time they're out there. Spike Valentine, one of my closest, most proud people I've worked with in the business. So proud making him champion a couple of years back. Spicer, so happy to see him carry a belt because he's such a talent. On the other side, you've got Harrison up on top. Great up-and-coming talent, going to set the world alight soon. Rags, up-and-coming talent, trained by Tommy Kyle. He's got a lot of upside to happen, still very young. Aidan White, down there on the top left-hand or middle left-hand side. Aidan has trained at Play Fight under Cara Noir, and he's a natural. He's going to be a big star. Josh King, I honestly think Josh King is one of the most underrated stars out there right now. He is unbelievably good, and I can't wait to be doing more with him next year. And then at the bottom left, we've got Rain, who I think is the waiting to break out talent of the UK. She is so unbelievably good. Hasn't even come close to showing the world what she can do. She's well trained. She's got the right attitude. She's absolutely crazy, and she's just so good. I can't wait to see her just completely set the scene alight next year.
There we go, and that's the Barnwell Upper School in Stevenage. So, like I say, if you want a wrestling show to get your teeth into tomorrow, that is the place to be for sure. Paul, we're nearly at the end of this live episode of Wrestling with Johners, but before we ask you for your socials, I need to enlighten my audience on who our next few guests are to see us through to the end of the year, through the remainder of December. And first of all, next Tuesday, I've got former NXT UK star Sam Gradwell coming onto the show. I met Sam recently at a show in Burnley. And like I say, he was happy to jump on the podcast, and you'll be able to see him next Tuesday live on Wrestling with Johners. And then the following week, I've got that lovely young lady there, Aluna Blue, Wednesday, the 21st of December. I think Aluna's actually featured on a UBW show this year, Paul, if I'm not mistaken. But Aluna will be my live guest on Wednesday, the 21st of December. And that'll be my last live guest of the year. But if you haven't already caught it, please check out part one of my Adrian Street interview, which is already up there on YouTube and all the audio platforms. But part two of my Adrian Street interview will be out on December the 28th. Adrian Street and Miss Linda part two, part of my Legends Masterclass series. Previous guests have included Marty Jones, Tony St. Clair, but Adrian Street and Miss Linda part two, another fantastic episode of Wrestling with Johners, the Legends Masterclass that you are not going to want to miss. But Paul, so some good guests there. Some you might know well, and maybe not so know, but a good lineup to see us through to the end of the year there, my friend.
Yeah, Aluna Blue's a fantastic talent. We're trying to align diaries at the moment to get some more work together, but she's so good, and she's got so much hunger and desire. She's going to be a big star. And of course, Adrian Street, one of the cornerstones of British wrestling. Everyone should watch that in terms of learning about being a character. He invented being a character. Tremendous
100%,
character.
absolutely. But just before we kind of stop the stream here, Paul, an opportunity for you to throw out to any of my listeners or viewers, if they want to reach out and say hi, get to know a bit more about Paul Ashe, see some of your footage, or just, like I say, approach you and, like I say hello, where can they do so across your socials, my friend?
Cool. Yeah. So my PayPal is
You nearly got me.
on Facebook. I've got my wrestler page there. I think it's Ashe Landing 77. It's Paul Ashe Wrestler. I don't update it much because I'm not really active at the moment, but there occasionally will be bits and pieces on there. I've got an Instagram, Ashe77. It's generally just pictures of my toys. I won't lie. It's mostly just this. There's not that much content on there.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
No, really, all I would say is if you want to follow me on the socials, follow UBW and Square One. Follow UBW on all the socials and YouTube as well. UBW, we are UBW. It is the handle on all of our socials. Tons of content on YouTube. I've got my own little channel on YouTube with all my old stuff. A lot of it's recorded on camcorder, so it's a bit grainy, but still it's there. But yeah, follow YouTube follow UBW rather than me. Far more interesting, and that's where my investment is. Just subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of content on there. There's a ton more to go up soon. Actually, it's my busy Christmas.
Yeah, we'll make sure that all the links to all of those, especially the UBW content, is in the description to this podcast. But Paul Ashe, it's been phenomenal talking to you for a little over an hour now about your history in the business, being a phenomenal trainer, booker, and pro wrestler. But thank you so much for your time, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonny. It's been wonderful. I've been looking forward to being on this for a while. It's great to just get an opportunity to talk about stuff and to put all the youngsters over. So yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll be listening to the next few, definitely.
There we go. My pleasure. Thank you, my friend.